November 20th, 1975, Nassau Civic Center, Bahamas. In front of 12,500 fans, the lights dimmed and a hush fell over the arena. Elvis, sweaty and radiant in his white jumpsuit, paused mid-song. Nobody knew the secret he was about to reveal would leave the crowd dead silent, change the legend forever. The warm Bahamian air settled over Nassau Civic Center, carrying the faint scent of the nearby harbor into the arena. Fans pressed toward the stage, waving homemade signs, their voices a rising tide of anticipation that echoed off the walls. Each step Elvis took was mirrored by the collective heartbeat of 12,500 people. The band drummer, Ron Tutt, guitarist, James Burton, and backup singer Cheryl Nielsen exchanged quick glances, ready for the first chord. Soft stage lights bathed the audience in gold, reflecting off sequins, banners, and glimmering eyes. The setlist teased the familiar hits, yet there was a tension under the usual excitement, as if the night held a hidden note waiting to be struck. The first chords of Promised Land rang out, and for a heartbeat, the arena felt electric. Every fan leaning forward, straining to absorb the sound, the smell, the heat. The stage was a live sweat, gleaming on Elvis's forehead, fingers poised on the guitar. Yet then, almost imperceptibly, he hesitated mid-step, eyes scanning the front rows as if searching for someone. The familiar rhythm wavered. The roar of anticipation faltered, replaced by murmurs. Something in that pause caught everyone off guard. Have you ever been somewhere the air itself felt electric, as if everyone knew a secret they were about to witness? The band faltered slightly, the audience whispering and craning their necks. Cameras clicked. Ron Tutt's sticks hovered in mid-air. The lights flickered faintly, shadows dancing across the faces of the 12,500 gathered. The first chord had been struck, but the music stopped, frozen, as though the arena itself were holding its breath. The first chord hits, but something is off. Elvis hesitates, and all 12,500 eyes follow his every motion. Midway through the opening verse, Elvis's hand rose slowly, signaling the band to halt. The notes died on the strings, leaving an unexpected silence hanging over 12,500 pairs of eyes and ears. A ripple of confusion ran through the crowd. Murmurs swelled like a tide, a mixture of anticipation and concern. Security shifted uneasily, unsure if this was part of the show or a sign of something more serious. Cameras clicked frantically, capturing every movement, every slight change in his expression. A young fan in the front row, clutching a faded notebook filled with scribbled lyrics, whispered a prayer aloud. Her voice trembled, breaking through the tension, and for a moment the arena seemed suspended between fear and hope. The echo of her words carried up to the stage, catching Elvis's attention. He paused longer than usual, gaze fixed on the girl, as though weighing a decision that only she could prompt. Reflective question: what would you do if a hero paused in front of you unexpectedly, leaving the world waiting for your response? The band held their breath. Ron Tutt tapped lightly on the snare, a soft signal that they were ready to follow whatever came next. Backup singer Cheryl Nielsen shifted slightly, sensing the weight in the air, the audience straining for any sign of normalcy. Whispers escalated. The energy of the arena transformed from excited anticipation to something raw, intimate tension that no stage setup could replicate. The usual roar of a performance was replaced by a palpable expectancy, a silent conversation between performer and crowd. Elvis bent down slightly, lowering his voice, eyes locking with the young fans. What he whispered would ripple instantly across the arena. the hush deepened. Not a single cheer or cough broke through. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. In that moment, the usual spectacle of lights and sound was secondary to something infinitely more human and unspoken. Connection bridging performer and audience. How does witnessing a singular act of attention from someone you admire alter your perception of them? Elvis leans closer, and the words he chooses silence the arena completely, leaving every person wondering what happens next. The arena went dead silent, 12,500 hearts pounding in unison. For the first time that night, reporters shifted in their seats, unsure whether this was a staged pause or a crisis. Backup singers exchanged uneasy glances, and the band's rhythm hung in limbo. Security edged forward cautiously, hands hovering near radios, eyes scanning the front rows for any sign of alarm. Every fan seemed frozen, caught between curiosity and anxiety. The collective energy coiling tighter with each passing second. Whispers swelled like wind through a canyon. Cameras clicked repeatedly, some fans holding up binoculars to glimpse the mystery playing out mere feet away. The young girl in the front row, still clutching her notebook, trembled slightly under the weight of his gaze. It was a scene both intimate and colossal, a singular moment magnified in front of a crowd larger than many small towns. What happened next stunned even the most seasoned roadies. Elvis reached into his jacket pocket and produced a folded piece of paper. The audience leaned forward instinctively, as if the very act of unfolding could release a secret larger than life. Security hesitated, unsure whether to intervene or respect the space the performer had created. Murmurs became whispers, whispers became held breaths. The usual roar of a concert had been replaced by a rare reverence, a silent communion between one man and thousands of souls. Every eye followed as he glanced once more at the young fan, then slowly at the crowd, and then down at the paper. His lips moved, softly at first. Words carried across the arena like a fragile bridge. Have you ever witnessed a crowd shift from chaos to reverence in seconds, drawn by a single choice? The tension was nearly unbearable, a delicate balance between what could be spectacle and what was now deeply personal. For the crew and the audience alike, the moment felt suspended in time. Ron Tutt gripped his sticks, but did not strike. James Burton's fingers hovered over strings. The band had learned long ago that Elvis's pauses were sometimes more powerful than the music itself. The audience, sensing something monumental, leaned in as though collective focus could coax the secret from his hands. Elvis lifted the folded paper fully into view, and then, in a motion no one anticipated, he did the unthinkable, stepping toward the edge of the stage in a gesture that would transform the night forever. Elvis stepped toward the edge of the stage, a single spotlight tracing the outline of his white jumpsuit. The paper in his hand was now visible to thousands, but it wasn't lyrics or a set list, it was a personal message, written for a local charity that had quietly supported underprivileged children across Nassau. His voice, soft yet commanding, carried across the arena. I see you. I hear you. We're all in this together. The words, simple yet profound, spread through the crowd like a gentle wave, silencing the last of the murmurs. Tears streaked his face, glistening under the stage lights. The young girl in the front row gasped softly, her notebook momentarily forgotten as her eyes filled with awe. Side characters felt the weight of the moment. Tron Tut exhaled slowly. James Burton's fingers unconsciously tapped the guitar strings, and Cheryl Nielsen's hand rested on her heart. Every person in the arena, from the front row to the upper balcony, seemed to lean closer, straining to feel the warmth of the connection Elvis had forged. Reflective question: what does it mean when a hero chooses empathy over spectacle? The music, once halted, remained quiet, allowing the human element of the night to dominate. The crowd's energy shifted from anxious curiosity to shared compassion. Each fan, sensing the authenticity of the moment, began to respond not with screaming, but with applause that rose slowly, swelling as more voices joined. Short bursts of sentences captured the rhythm of transformation. Look around, feel it. This is more than music. Soft strings on the orchestra tracks amplified the intimacy, while handheld cameras recorded faces frozen in wonder. Elvis then invited volunteers from the charity to the stage. Children, staff, and local supporters emerged amid applause, their smiles radiant. Fans passed scarves, notes, and letters forward, a symbolic offering of participation in a shared moment of generosity. The arena, once a stage for performance, had become a platform for connection and compassion. Nobody expected him to step off the stage, but he did. The air seemed charged with both awe and relief. The choice to prioritize humanity over spectacle had transformed the atmosphere entirely. The audience rose together, clapping not merely for a performance, but for a moral gesture, a demonstration of what it meant to care in a world so often focused on fame. The pause, the whisper, the paper roll had built to this unexpected apex of empathy. As the applause reached its peak, cameras caught a moment no one could have scripted: a young girl hugging Elvis, sealing the memory in time, hinting that the night would be remembered forever. The applause reverberated through Nassau Civic Center, but it was no longer the mere reaction to a song. It was an acknowledgement of something far greater. Elvis stepped back slightly, gesturing toward the crowd, and the energy shifted. Fans, inspired by the singer's unexpected act of compassion, began to contribute spontaneously. Hats were passed down aisles, envelopes filled with donations for the local charity, scarves fluttered across hands, and small notes of encouragement were handed to stage assistants to deliver. The arena had become a conduit for generosity, and 12,500 individuals were united by a single purpose: to extend kindness beyond the music. On stage, the children from the charity were wide-eyed, some too shy to speak, others clutching handmade gifts for Elvis and his band. One boy held a crumpled drawing of a guitar, another a carefully folded letter. The symbolism was striking. The children, once invisible to many, were now at the heart of a legendary moment. The front rows echoed with whispered reactions, soft words that contrasted sharply with the thunderous cheers of a typical concert. Side characters like Ron Tutt and James Burton watched, visibly moved, their instruments momentarily forgotten, as the audience collectively embraced the spontaneity of the gesture. Elvis knelt briefly to accept a small scarf from a young girl, holding it gently as though it were the most precious object in the arena. When was the last time you witnessed collective kindness ripple through a crowd, transforming energy into action? Fans in the back rows mirrored the emotion, standing, raising hands, leaning forward to feel connected to the unfolding humanity. Cameras caught wide shots of fans passing items forward, documenting the unplanned communion between audience and performer. Each action reinforced the night's lesson that even amidst fame and spectacle, authentic empathy could spark a wave of generosity. Volunteers from the charity moved with care, gathering contributions while allowing the crowd to remain engaged in the ritual of giving. The children, emboldened by Elvis's presence, began to share small stories of hope, each anecdote eliciting quiet smiles and gentle applause. The emotional rhythm of the arena had shifted. Awe had given way to tension, tension to compassion, and now compassion to catharsis. The crowd had not merely witnessed a performance, they had become participants in a transformative experience. A photographer in the center aisle whispered to his colleague, "This will be legendary," capturing a moment when a young girl hugged Elvis tightly. Her joy radiated across the arena, amplified by the cameras and microphones that recorded every subtle movement, every exchange of smiles, every fleeting glance. The hush of reverence, now punctuated by applause, created a unique cadence, one that would linger in the memories of everyone present. Minnie Hook, even those in the furthest seats, could feel the warmth, the authenticity, the change happening in real time. By the time the band gently strummed the next song, the atmosphere had transformed completely. Fans were no longer mere spectators. They were collaborators in an impromptu demonstration of communal empathy. The stage, once a space for performance alone, had become a platform for human connection, bridging the gap between celebrity and audience. Every gesture, from a folded note to a passed scarf, was a thread weaving a tapestry of shared experience that would echo far. Beyond that night, cameras lingered on the young girl hugging Elvis, and whispers traveled quickly through the crowd. This night, this pause, and this choice would change Nassau forever. 2 months later, Nassau Civic Center unveiled a commemorative plaque in the main lobby. Engraved in brass letters were the words, "Elvis Presley, November 20th, 1975, a pause that changed a crowd forever." Visitors would read the date, the venue, and the official crowd estimate of 12,500, and immediately understand that this night had transcended a typical concert. Press clippings from Nassau Daily and other local outlets, framed nearby, captured the headlines: "Elvis's compassion silences arena and the pause that united thousands." Side characters shared their own reflections. Ron Tutt recalled backstage moments of quiet awe. James Burton spoke of the electricity in the air, and Cheryl Nielsen recounted the way the children's smiles had illuminated the entire stage. Letters sent to the charity poured in over weeks, each telling a personal story of how the event had inspired generosity, hope, and connection. Families who had attended the show wrote of the transformative energy, recalling the hush, the whispered words, the sudden intimacy of thousands feeling united. A faded bootleg tape surfaced months later, capturing the raw sound of the pause, the faint whispers of the crowd, and the unmistakable moment when Elvis stepped toward the children. Even decades later, fans still retell the silence, the awe, and the unexpected gesture that made them feel seen. The children featured in the charity's programs later wrote letters to Elvis, some including drawings of guitars, flowers, and hand-drawn plaques of their own. These artifacts were carefully preserved in the local museum, a testament to the night's ripple effect. One photograph captured a young girl holding her notebook against Elvis's chest as he knelt to her level, the stage lights catching tears glistening on both their faces. Reflected in her expression was a moment of connection that defined the evening, not music, not spectacle, but human attention, empathy, and acknowledgement. Even crew members, who had seen thousands of shows, admitted it had changed their understanding of what a performance could be. The arena had shifted from a place of entertainment to a space of shared experience. Emotional energy, previously driven by music and applause, was now rooted in compassion. Reporters wrote follow-ups months later, noting that few artists had ever managed to elicit such a collective selfless response from a crowd. Visitors returning to Nassau Civic Center would often pause at the plaque, imagining the scene, 12,500 hearts held in suspense, the hush of awe, the ripple of humanity sparked by a single, unexpected choice. Can one act of courage redefine an entire legacy, transforming a night from performance to legend? Mini Hook, the old bootleg tape, resurfaces online, faint but unmistakable, hinting at conversations and gestures that had gone unseen. Yet forever engraved in memory, the arena, once merely a stage, had become a living monument to the power of pause, empathy, and human connection, a legacy that would echo long after the final note faded. Elvis's final bow in Nassau was more than the conclusion of a concert. It was a lesson etched into the hearts of 12,500 witnesses. The pause, the whisper to a single fan, the choice to step off the stage and acknowledge humanity over spectacle, became a quiet testament to presence, empathy, and courage. In that arena, the roar of the crowd had been replaced by a hush filled with connection, revealing that even in the midst of fame, compassion carries its own resonance. What would you do if you could pause a moment and reveal your truth to those who look up to you? The contrast was striking. The usual cacophony of music and lights against the profound stillness that had defined this night. Fans, crew, and even reporters carried the memory forward, recognizing that the power of a single compassionate act can ripple through time and transform ordinary moments into legend. Backstage, Ron Tutt and James Burton would later speak of the night in reverent tones. They described how the arena's energy shifted from performance-driven excitement to something collective, something deeper. Cheryl Nielsen recalled the children's glowing faces and the spontaneous generosity of fans, how scarves, letters, and heartfelt notes had moved across the stage like waves. Marsha Owens, director of the local charity, preserved photographs, letters, and mementos from the night, each serving as evidence that one person's choice could mobilize a community. Even decades later, recordings and bootleg tapes circulated online, capturing the hush, the whispers, and the intimate connection between Elvis and the audience. The plaque in Nassau Civic Center stood as a permanent reminder that fame alone does not define legacy. Humanity does. Mini Hook, every note played afterward, could never match the resonance of that single pause. In reflection, the moral becomes clear. Greatness is not only measured by talent or spectacle, but by the courage to choose empathy over expectation, to notice the unseen, and to give presence when it matters most. The memory of Nassau 1975 endures not merely because of the music, but because Elvis reminded 12,500 people and generations to follow that compassion can transform a moment into legend. The hush, the pause, the gesture, they remain forever etched in history, asking each of us, how will we act when given the chance to truly see another? Share this story with someone who needs a reminder that compassion matters more than spectacle. Reflect on the moments when small acts can ripple into unforgettable memories. Watch, listen, and let the hush of Nassau 1975 inspire your own pauses, those moments where humanity outweighs everything else.